Hey, YouTube viewers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Factor X number 2. We are continuing our Age of Apocalypse, and this series, I forget how good issue 2 is, because issue 1's kind of like the powder keg, and then we kind of just start to see the fallout and how some alliances are made, some are broken down. So let's jump into it and talk about it. The print date on this was April 1995. So here we're kind of getting some more third-person narrative from Sinister. We're talking about the creation of the Brain Trust, which is supposed to keep all the people, mutants and human alike, in the pens sedated. But there are still the people that are able to get away. And these two in particular, they're like, how do we know we can trust this person, Tommy? How do we know that this isn't another one of Sinister's sick games? So we come to find out that the pens are just a very dark, tormentive place to be. Now we see this person with green hair, a silhouette of Magneto's hand, and it says, "Follow me." And this person, she goes, you finally come. And before we get into that, this is called Abandoned Children. This is John Francis Moore, writer, Steve Epting, penciler, Al Milgrom, inker, Richard Starkings and Comicraft lettering, Glynis Oliver, love that, old school, colorist, Kelly Culver's editor, and Bob Harris, father. So, again, love the little fun pokes like that. So, she goes, "Wait, aren't you going to take me with you?" "Quiet, girl. I would take you all if I could, but the risk of discovery is too great." "You have to. You promised." "I don't know you. I'm sorry." Now, this next part's not really a spoiler, but just it makes you think, and it really sets the stakes. So, dejected and hurt, she goes, "How can you say that? Don't you recognize me? I'm your daughter." So, for longtime X-Men fans, at this point, we should kind of have an idea who that is. But if not, we'll go ahead and sit on that for a second. So here, well, what I didn't talk about last issue, because I didn't want to spoil it, but now that we're kind of moving forward, at the end of number 1, Sinister has taken refuge in this Apocalypse statue, which is on Liberty Island. He blows it up to hide all his data. So Cyclops and Havoc, being the top EMF members, have to report to Apocalypse. And he's just talking about, Sinister's always only had his own agenda from the beginning. But he's like, it's no matter. He knows that it's inevitable his outcome will be his death. Now, check this out. He goes, "For centuries, I have filled the oceans with the blood of my enemies. I have built an empire on the bones who would oppose me. I am Apocalypse. I endure." Now, look at Havoc's face. Look at Cyclops' face. It's like, "Forgive me, my lord, but I do not think Sinister should be underestimated. He was one of the architects of your ascension. His knowledge can still hurt us. So I want you to pay attention to the way their faces are. Because here, Apocalypse says, unlike your brother, you do not recoil from my rage. You stand your ground. No wonder Sinister spoke highly of you, Scott Summers. Perhaps in the conflict to come, you will take your mentor's place and stand at my side as a horseman." Now, see how things begin to escalate here. Cyclops is like, "Okay," and Havoc's like, "No." So jealousy strikes, and it really begins to create a conflict between these two, which Havoc kind of starts to make his own little schemes and plans and whatnot. So he comes back to the pens, talks about the breakout, and they're like, "Well, let's go talk to this green-haired lady." He goes, "That her?" "Yes, sir. Number 3774. Name's Lorna Dane." So yes, this is Polaris, ladies and gentlemen. And they're talking about because she's mentally unstable, but they still nonetheless have to get answers from her. And like, well, why didn't, well, before we get to that, she goes, who helped the others escape? I told you, my father, Magneto. Don't lie to me. So this panel hurts knowing the relationship between these two in the 616 universe. But again, this is the hellscape. And they don't know each other the way that they do in the real universe. So that still, nonetheless, breaks my heart. Now you come to see that she still has her alpha class mutant powers. And Havoc is asking why the brain trust didn't keep her sedated. And Elizabeth Gerthy is saying, well, we noticed that with some of the people that are more mentally unstable, it doesn't work all the time. So she's kind of sealed her fate. Havoc wants to take her to the Dark Beast for crossing him. And of course, this is the torture chamber. And what's cool is here you kind of get the backstory of Lorna and why she thinks Magneto's her father. I don't want to spoil that. However, there is one thing I do want to point out. And I like the way the art team kind of makes it look more kind of, gives it that more pulpy look to make it look like past stuff. She goes, she eventually made an alliance that ended in a fateful conflict with her power siphoning rogue, stealing half of Lorna's magnetic intensity. And the reason I wanted to point this out is because it's referenced in X-Men Chronicles #1, and you're like, how did she get her powers from Polaris? Well, I like that they pointed it out here. And so some more story, which kind of starts leading things up, which I don't want to give away. But here's where things start to get interesting again. So as we talked about last issue, Havoc and Scarlett McKenzie, the singer at Heaven, are a couple. And she says that she thinks she's fallen in love with him. And he goes, don't say it, Scarlett. Not even if you mean it. You're human. It's already complicated enough. So as Havoc leaves, she picks up the phone and she goes, look, things are getting too hot for my taste. They picked up Karma from the club yesterday, which happened in Amazing X-Men #2. I think it was at the end of that one. She goes, I need a ticket out of here fast. Now who is she talking to? Why is she paranoid? Pick up the book. In here we see the Beast torturing Lorna, which is really rough. But then you hear, stop. And here, Cyclops, the voice of reason. He says, you're violating a direct order. No genetic testing during the Kelly Pact negotiations. And Beast says, this is just a ruse. You know Apocalypse has no intention of making nice with the humans. And you're sitting here interrupting my work. And once this charade's over, the next generation of mutants is mine to engineer. So Cyclops being in charge has had enough of Beast. And basically at that point it saved Lorna's life. Now, towards the end of the book, Lorna is freed, and she's taken away with to Val Cooper, which I'm trying to get to the panel without spoiling too much. But yeah, so Val Cooper, who's the one that sponsors Weapon X, not Weapon X, X Factor in the 616 universe, you find here is a resistance fighter for the Human High Council. And so who's helping Lorna? Who's talking to Val Cooper? Who's watching who? Well, may I suggest that you all read Factor X #2. I know kind of skimmed over this book, but I don't want to give a lot away. I just wanted to show the different styles of art, which, you know, kind of showing the back story of how Lorna lost a lot of her power to Rogue, the schisms that are happening between Havoc and Cyclops, and just the way that they introduced Lorna into this universe and how heartbreaking it is to see in this hellscape that is the Age of Apocalypse. So if you guys have enjoyed this book and want to read more, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the club channel grow, guys, and I really would appreciate it. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little Cyclops bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love to hear your feedback and just talk with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, thank you all so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.